Welcome to the Recovery Lab podcast. We're glad you were able to join us. Recovery Lab hopes to destigmatize addiction and normalize recovery.
Our platform provides an avenue to share the many stories of those that have recovered from addiction, providing for the listener the most basic antidote to addiction: hope. All right. Thank you for joining us. This is episode number 71 of the Recovery Lab podcast. My name is Daniel Anderson. Drew Hassin is taking a vacation down in Ocean Springs. We wish him safe traveling. And this is kind of last minute, but Stacy came through in a big way again today. Stacey Leggitt. She is a therapist at Defining Wellness. She is in recovery, and she offers a wonderful perspective. So we're grateful to her for joining us again today on this episode number 71. Today we are joined by Matt Milliman. Did I say that right?
That's right, Milliman. Yeah,
Milliman.
Tongue twister.
Yeah. So Matt is the Executive Director and CEO at Mercy House Adult Teen Challenge, right?
Right.
You are sober, and you've got quite a story to tell. So, like we discussed at the top, we're going to let's take 5 to 10 minutes to tell everyone what qualifies you to be sitting right here at the Recovery Lab. So, without further ado, Matt, take it away.
Well, I'm glad to be here, to be able to share. I was riding over here just thinking about the privilege it is to be able to be sober and living life, I believe, to the fullest, which all of us should be living life to the fullest. And, to say how am I qualified to be here, it's kind of a journey, because I'm qualified because of a lot of dumb decisions.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what qualifies you.
that I made. So it's kind of like a mixed bag of qualifications, but nonetheless, I'm here, and so I'm glad to be here. And my journey with addiction and struggling with alcohol and drugs started at about 15 years old.
Okay.
My dad, like a lot of people, family, you grew up in dysfunction. My dad was a very, very bad alcoholic. And so I grew up just seeing a lot of dysfunction. Wasn't a bad man, but, just seeing a lot of unhealthy stuff. And I can remember growing up saying, I'll never drink.
Right.
I'll never, do drugs, or at least I'll never do hard drugs. And
Yeah.
And
we've been there.
I just smoked a little marijuana.
Yeah. Right.
And then
That's a plant. It's not a problem.
right. And then you don't realize it, but because there's dysfunction, you don't have wholeness on the inside of you, and you don't know who you are, and so you start hanging out with people, and because of the people you hang out with, you start drinking. And for me, I never could just have one.
Right.
Drink, like a lot of people. One was never enough, and 5 or 10, just didn't. It didn't ever get me filled. So that's how my journey started: alcohol, marijuana, dysfunction at home. My parents divorced when I was 16, and so I was really on my own from probably my junior year, senior year of high school. I had my own apartment, so it was just a recipe for disaster.
Right.
And so that's kind of how my life spiraled out of control. At a young age, I was 16, snorting cocaine and hard drugs, and ended up smoking crack, and just
another Tuesday.
Yeah,
This is what we do.
Yeah,
I relate to that.
I literally had friends that they would want to try hard drugs, and like they were like, oh yeah, let's get some cocaine, and I'd be like, all right, and we'd get some, and like a week later they'd call me, like, or I'd go hang out with them, I'd still be up,
Right.
like I never quit, and they were like, bro, what are you doing? And I was, I just couldn't help the addiction, because I wasn't whole on the inside, and that's for all of us,
Right, and you were seeking for that, to find that solution to fill that hole,
that fulfillment. When you don't have fulfillment at home or with community or with friends or wherever it is, you find it, and addiction becomes an escape. And addiction was an escape for me. It was an escape from reality. It was a place I could go hide and I could become a person that I wasn't.
Yep.
Because it's all a fallacy. You know, you create this person in your head that you're not, and you think you're cool, you think you're somebody. And
so cool.
Yeah.
I look so good. I have one eyebrow hair that stretched all the way across, and I was like, I look good.
I'm good.
I'm
Taking
good.
selfies. This is
Yeah.
before selfies. We didn't do that. We had flip phones back then. But,
Right.
you know what I mean? Everybody in addiction has created a world that most of the time doesn't exist.
Yep.
And if it does exist, it's very unhealthy, and you're not seeing it right. And so that was me, and I just kept getting arrested. And at either 19 or 20 years old, found myself in jail, was doing 5 months in jail, and I heard about a program called the Arc of Lafayette, which is like Adult and Teen Challenge. It was run by a guy that had graduated Teen Challenge, and so I got out of jail and I ended up taking almost a whole bottle of pills. You know, I had all these plans to stay sober, go to work, and I couldn't do it. You know, I didn't know how to live in society, which nobody, if you're on drugs, you don't know how to live in society.
Right.
You know, and that's the biggest challenge for anybody. So anyway, I go to this program, and God just really changed my life. You know, I never wanted to be on drugs. Nobody does. Nobody wakes up with the intention of being a crackhead, you know.
I'd like to lose my teeth, actually.
Right, you know, or being on meth. Like nobody,
a lot of fun.
nobody has that intention for their life, and then you find yourself in this place where you're like, man, you know, I'm the person I never thought I would be. And for me, that was at a young age. Like I went through from 15 to 20 in that range. I mean, more than what most people do until they're 30 or 40. I mean,
Right.
really.
And you also get to a point where you're so deep in it, and so you're so far down that it almost, and I can only speak for myself, but for me it was like, well, my life is crap anyways. Like it would take so much work to get out of this hole. I'm just gonna the temptation to just continue to go on in that way is very, it's there, you know?
Yeah.
And what it took for me is that I had to get to a point where I literally, I was at a fork in the road. You know, it was either I was going to kill myself or I was going to do something different. Like I didn't have there was no like middle ground of like, well, maybe we'll just, you know, we'll try outpatient or we'll try
It doesn't work.
Yeah. I tried all of that. I was at the end of my road. You know, I was at that fork. It was kill myself or do something differently than I've done in the past. And, you know, for me, I had to get to that point. I was not going to go lightly into the night. You know, I was going down with a fight. And, you know, that fortunately I knew, you know, from my experience with recovery that, you know, there is a way. If I ask for God, he's going to show me a way out. And I had to get to a point where I was broken and able to make that. So continue on.
Well,
Go ahead.
I watched I couldn't help it this morning. I was praying. I was getting ready for church, and it kind of goes along with what you're saying. And every now and then I will, you know, just come out of agreement with the lies that I've been believing from the enemy.
Yeah.
Sometimes those things creep back in. And I think one of the biggest lies that I try to expose in what I do every day is that this is just who I am. For people who are still in active addiction, like this is just nothing's going to change me. This is just who I am.
Which is a lie, right?
Right.
Which is a lie, you know. But we do get so far down, and it seems like it would take so much to get us out of. I remember looking at people who like owned houses. I was like, gosh, how do you get there? You know,
Right,
like, you just
right.
you just pay for that. You just like, and then you go on vacations, like buy groceries. Like it just, I just could not even fathom that, much less be doing those things and be happy. So I was like, this is just who I am.
Right.
You know, I'm supposed to be a drug addict. So when I think about those lies, like for anybody that might be listening, that is not who you are, and that is not who you were created to be.
And you don't have to carry all that weight. Yes, it is. It takes a lot of work to get out of the grip of active addiction. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
And for someone to do on their own, virtually impossible. Yeah. You can't do it on your own. You got to have help. But fortunately, there is a creator out there. And if you're not along the God lines now, okay, a higher power, if that's the way you want to say it. I personally believe in God as my higher power. And for me, I knew I had enough experience in the faith-based world, the AA world, that, all of recovery, to know that there was an entity out there. And for me, it was God, that God would do the heavy lifting for me.
Yeah.
Right.
I had to show that little bit of willingness. And it was at that moment, exactly at that moment, where I was broken, and I asked God for help, that he was like, all right, let's go, my boy. Let's get this going.
Yeah.
And he took me by the hand, and we worked. But I feel like God used me when I was in active addiction. There's no question. You know, oftentimes probably it was for other people looking at me being like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But
What not to do.
right.
You don't want to do this.
But God used me in some way. I feel certain. But God was able to use me effectively, positively, when I made that decision to do something different and to show a little bit of willingness to him and be open to him directing my life and me giving my will over to him instead of just my will only. My will got me in sitting in a chair behind the house with a gun.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this is what we lose sight of, this fact that we're all spiritual beings having a temporary physical experience here on the earth. You
Right.
know, and a pastor that mentors me, he says that all the time. You know, we're all spiritual beings, and we get so focused on this world and what's happening that we lose sight of who we were created to be as spiritual beings. And
Yeah.
of course, I believe in God. I believe in the power of Jesus Christ that changes people's lives. Everybody's on different journeys to get there, but you know, we're just passing through here,
Right.
and it's important to keep that mindset. Look, I remember in 2007, just got out of jail, and I'm walking to my sister's house. I had nothing, you know. She didn't even pick me up. She was so hungover, she didn't even pick me up from jail, you know. And I could barely fit in the clothes. I remember being so embarrassed because I was like this, a rail, and I'd got in these clothes before I was arrested, and I mean, they were skin tight on me, and I just feel like a complete idiot.
I know what you're talking about.
And I'm walking with this ambition, like I'm going to get my life changed. And I remember walking into her house, and she's, you know, sleeping, passed out, whatever, and like everything that I didn't want to become, I'm right back in an environment. And next thing you know, there was a bottle of pills, and I started taking pills. But I remember sitting on her porch right around that same time, either before I took the pills, after, I can't remember exactly, but just cried out to God. I was like, man, I don't want to live like this. I mean, you know, you get to a point where it's just enough. And God said, if you'll go to that program, I'll change your life.
Yep.
If you go, I'll change your life. And, you know, I fought a little bit, you know, to go, but I went, and God did change my life. And in that program, I got introduced to a leadership college. It was, back then it was called Master's Commission. Now it's called Crossroads Leadership College.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
And at that college, you know, it taught me how to pursue the call of God that was on my life, how to pursue a relationship with him, how to find my identity in who I was and what I was created to be. And then not only that, but it taught me how to be a leader. And they taught us practical steps on how to do things that is what I'm living in today, how to run ministry, how to help people, how to, you know, disciple and train people. And really, you know, it just taught me a lot about how to be the person that God created me to be. And so, you know, fast forward, I did 2 years in that school, and then I went back to work in a recovery program that I graduated from. I did that for a little bit, and then, you know, I kind of got frustrated with some things in leadership. I thought they were doing some stuff wrong, and, you know, long story short, not to get into all that, but I left, and specifically, I know God's called me to help people that struggle with addiction. I know that. And I knew that back then, but, you know, you allow outside voices to get in, and you're not making enough money, you know. And my dad was in my ear, and he was telling me, you know, son, you're not making any money. You've got to do something. What are you doing? And so anyway, I left that, and long story short, I ended up having one beer, like I was telling y'all earlier. Had one beer about 2 years later in 2014. I had one beer and didn't even finish it. You know, shooting pool with some I think my cousin or something, and he was like, you probably can have a beer. Like, what's the big deal? You know? And
Well, I might smoke crack later.
it's not that big of a deal.
We'll leave that out right now.
And, you know, you just feel like you're on top of the world. I finished that, or three quarters of it. And, of course,
And the world didn't crash down
Right.
Yeah.
everywhere, and there were no consequences, and it was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I have a fifth of whiskey in my freezer.
That part.
Right.
You know, and you
How
know,
long did it take from that 3/4 of a beer to the fifth of whiskey?
Oh, a month.
A month? Okay.
I have to jump in here because I mean I have such a similar story. Like, because I graduated Teen Challenge, got a job, was doing the whole thing, functioning member of society, and I too was like, I think that I'm gonna drink like normal people, but I was going to pray about it, and so I prayed about it.
What God tell you when you prayed about that?
Well, I gave him about 3 minutes, and he didn't answer. So I was like, "It's good. It's
no news is good news, right?
It's gonna be fine."
Did you throw out a fleece like some people do? And like, no.
I just felt like I knew. I knew me and God.
I know this in my heart.
In my heart of hearts, I can feel this. And probably, I don't know, 3 months maybe. My timeline is really sketchy because drugs, but. I had a needle.
3 months, 3 years.
I had a needle in my neck, and I was like, "Wow, this really escalated quickly," But I'm really grateful that you have that story, and I'm grateful that I have that story, and that a lot of people do have that story, because even the most well-meaning people in recovery that really love Jesus and really want to stay sober fall into the belief system that I can drink like normal people because alcohol is legal and alcohol is normal, and the thorn in the flesh, the sin that so easily entangles, like we will fall right, because it's not about the substance, it's about the experience and the
lifestyle.
Right.
It. Yeah, and being able to instantly change the way that I feel. That is what I'm addicted to.
Bingo.
No matter what form that takes, that's what I'm addicted to.
Bingo.
And alcohol is the same as any other thing that we go to.
Right. And I struggled. I mean, I got that, but I got the, I finally got to a point where, okay, meth is not going to be a solution for me. I get that. Alcohol, I'll wreck a car, I'll kill someone. I know that's not going to be a solution. But this plant here.
God made it.
It levels me off.
It levels me off.
It helps my anxiety.
I kid you not. I convinced myself that I was so miserable that in order for me to be okay to be around other people, in order for other people to be okay to be around me, I needed to medicate with weed.
For you. I'm doing this for you.
Yes. Like I believed that. I believed
with everything
that.
Inside of you.
With
right?
everything inside of me. And I tried my hardest, man. I tried and I tried and I tried. And I'm not going to smoke after 5 or before 5 o'clock PM. I'm just not going to do it,
Boundaries, right?
Yeah. You got to have boundaries.
Here.
And then that would be, okay, but okay, so my job today was done at 2. Nobody's at the house, maybe 3 o'clock today.
Yeah.
Other days I'll do 5 o'clock, but today 3. And it just...
Where'd that lead you?
Mm-hmm.
Every morning waking up, the first thing I did was smoke weed.
Yeah.
And and I tried that multiple times, bro. Like, I tried it. I tried so hard. And
what's crazy is
it's not going to be a solution for me.
Whenever I relapsed, and it didn't take long, because ultimately I was looking for fulfillment. Even when I was just had that one beer, I didn't know it. But it didn't take long. I found the same drug dealer that I got drugs from 6-7 years earlier.
They're like magnets.
Doing the same thing, and we were cool. We were friends, friends.
Right.
That's my boy.
Loose.
I got that street cred out there.
He knows me. We go way back, right? And all he's looking for is some money, right?
Right. He spends my money. That's it.
And honestly, it didn't take long. I mean, I was arrested 10 months later for drug trafficking. Just to let you know, how that one beer, like, no big deal. I'm okay. Yeah. I got this. And next thing you know, I'm hooked up with a big drug dealer.
Yeah.
And I'm selling drugs.
Moving weight.
You know what I mean? So that's just where the progression grows. And I know people listening like, well, I don't sell drugs. I just use drugs. But you may still wreck your family by one beer.
I never sold drugs once in my life.
I couldn't
ever.
Sell drugs.
I was too much of a pansy.
I did them all.
Well, that's what happened to me. You do them all, and the next thing you know, somebody tells on you, and they rat you out, and you end up arrested. But honestly, that was the best thing for me.
Yeah,
sure. I
got caught, but I had no business living that life, and I got arrested for drug trafficking, selling drugs, and then I was like, well, I still got it figured out. God was like, go back to Teen Challenge, go, and I was like, no, I got it. I got arrested again for more felonies, and just total mess of my life. And then I got arrested 2 more times, and the cops let me go. Literally, like, that never happens.
Right.
Caught me with drugs, threw the drugs away, and said, I don't know why I'm doing this. Literally said, I don't know why I'm doing this. You need to get out of here and let me go. I mean, that doesn't even make sense.
Wow.
And after that second time, I was like, maybe I should do something with my life. I don't know. if there's a sign that's like happening, but I think I need to do something. And so that was the beginning of the journey, and that's how I ended up at Mercy House in 2015.
Did you stay sober after that time where those two cops let you off?
For about a month. Yeah.
For about a month. Okay.
Yeah. And then I ended up. My dad ended up having a heart attack. And passing away. He actually died in my arms. It was pretty traumatic.
That could be categorized as a life stressor. Absolutely.
It was pretty traumatic. And so then I stayed sober 3 weeks after he died, and then I got right back into addiction. But a few months later, or 2 months later, I ended up coming to Mercy House.
Okay.
I called a friend of mine, Charlie Campbell, and I said, hey, I need to get some help. I'm from Louisiana, by the way. I'm not from Mississippi. I'm from Lafayette. I'm a Cajun at heart. And so I come here to Mississippi. I have a lot of family that lives in the Meridian, DeKalb area. And that's how my journey at Mercy House, that's how I got here, is through a bunch of dumb decisions, arrested. And my attorney actually said, don't go to Mercy House. It won't help you. You're going to jail. He said, you're going to prison because of the charges. And I was like, I don't care. I just got to get, I got to get sober. I have to, I'm not happy. I don't want to live like this.
You were ready.
I was done, but I just had this call. I was like, man, I know there's more to life than this.
We just said that, didn't we? The
and
word
people,
more.
And people listening today, you could be at that place too, where you're like, man, I know there's more to life than waking up every day not knowing how I got there, or sick because I don't have any pills, or
where these bruises come from.
What the heck happened? How did my life end up here? And so people listening, your life could be a bump. There could be a lot of bumps along the way, and your journey could look like mine, Stacy's. You relapsed and you've messed up, but there's hope,
right?
Because I made a total mess of my life. And just to let y'all know, I did restoration at Mercy House. I did 6 months, and I interned. I was on staff. On top of the world. Because the reason I relapsed and walked away from my calling was pride. You see it all in the recovery world. You see people that lose sight of why they got sober in the first place, what made them get sober, and they start allowing compromise, or thinking they can have a beer, thinking they can smoke a joint, thinking they can get involved in this relationship, and
having good intentions too.
Good intentions. Nobody intends to wreck their life. That's why you need accountability. You need community. You need people that you tell everything about your life. And I'm not saying you need to tell that to everybody, but you need to have one person or a group of people that you're willing to bare your soul with.
Sure.
Because you need to know, hey, am I off on this thought? Is this
connection?
Right. Yeah, is this wrong what I'm thinking? And so, so that's how I ended up at Mercy House. And but I just started working on staff, and all my charges, I went to court, and God worked a miracle in one county. I had charges in 2 counties in Mississippi. God worked a miracle, and then in the other county, I was facing the trafficking charges, and my attorney made me wait all day. I'd hired a pretty good attorney, but eventually he came back to me at the end of the day. He's like, hey, let's go to my office. We need to talk. And I was like, because I'm thinking God's moved. I'm getting ready to get off all this stuff. He sees my heart, but sometimes you got to face your consequences for your choices. And he said, look, they're willing to come off the trafficking. They're going to drop it all the way down to simple possession. He's like, I know this sounds crazy to you, but they're offering you an 8-year sentence. They're going to suspend 4. You only serve 4. You're only going to do a year. He said, I think it's a good deal. I think you should take it. And I was like, what? No, that's not a good deal. Can you? And he was like, well, we can do an open plea. And he was like, but man, I think you should take this deal. And he was like, just go home and think about it. And so I remember driving. If you've ever been to Georgetown, there's a 4-way stop. And I got to that 4-way stop, and I remember God said, the way I saw Joseph through prison, I'll see you through this. And I'll never forget this peace that surpassed, all understanding, like you read in the Bible, happened to me. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna take it, and I'm gonna do it. And I went through prison. That was in 2016. I did exactly a year. I got out in 2017, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yep.
Now,
I was just fixing to say.
It was hard. But I served God in prison. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I never wavered. I never compromised. I really tried.
Were the drugs there?
Yeah, the drugs were everywhere.
Yeah.
Spice and meth and weed and cigarettes and but I was done with that life.
Right.
And everybody I talked to, I told them that. And it's for a different topic, but I had so many testimonies of God's faithfulness. I didn't go into C custody where I had, not C custody, A custody where I was minimum security. I was in B custody, which I was in some really, really dark places around some really crazy stuff, saw a lot of crazy stuff. and yet God was faithful to me.
Yeah.
And all those things that I walked through have made me a better leader and a better person. So all those things, I believe, humbled me, which is necessary for anybody to walk through. And really, it was me facing consequences for my choices.
And being at a point where, go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's such a powerful story, because how many times as Christians we see this thing and we call it bad. Oh my gosh, how could you? And we get angry at God.
Like, how could you do this to me?
How could you do this to me? Heart? Yeah, and then we go through the hard thing, and like for me that was my relapse, and I learned so much in that darkness that I could not have learned just by doing the next right thing,
Right.
And so there's so much purpose in the things that we call bad, and it's like this big horrible thing I'm about to have to do, but it's kind of like Jesus being called away into the desert. Like if this is something God is intentionally allowing to happen to my life, and if he's allowing it, then he has a purpose for it, and that purpose has to be good.
Right. This is what it boils down to. This is what it boils down to for me. So the good God uses absolutely 100%. It teaches me how to be a good person and to triumph with class and dignity. But the bad and the adverse things that happen in my life, those are 10 times more important for me. And we have a decision to make when bad things come in our life. Are we going to be a victim, or are we going to push forward and take an honest, deep dive look at ourselves and say, okay, where was I wrong?
Mm-hmm. Right.
How can I fix this? How can I go forward and learn what I need to learn, feel what I need to feel without numbing with any substances, and move past this? That's and then moving past this, that experience, no matter how negative it is, it will become profitable to me in my ability to use that experience to help someone else in the future.
Right.
And then it's profitable to me. While it's unfortunate that the negative thing happened, and am I going to learn from it? Yes. Am I going to grow from it? Yes. But that is something that God will then use for me to be able to help someone else in the future. So all in all, that thing, whatever it was a positive thing.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. I run to adversity today with gratitude instead of, oh, look what happened to me. Look what the world did to me. Look what God did to me. No. God, if something difficult happens in my life, God is wanting me to grow and learn in some area. And I run to the thought process of quickly identifying where I can learn, what I can learn, and how I can grow from this.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're all living our life, forward, looking backwards at everything, and the journey that all of us are on. It's really powerful, because I'm a Christ follower, and I believe in that. I believe God wants to establish our faith. If you read in the Bible, you'll see the Apostle Paul walk through the call of God on his life, and he experienced nothing but chaos.
Right.
But he knew he was doing what God called him to do, and Paul could make these bold statements of faith because he walked through it. And a lot of people sometimes look at me and they're like, "You're just some preppy," And I'm like, what advice can you give me? And I'm like, let me tell you what advice I can give you, because I may look this way because
I've been through hell.
Because Jesus cleaned me up.
Yeah.
There's no other way, but God changed my life.
Right.
And I was on the course for death, prison for a very long time, but God stepped in and said, no. I've got a plan for your life.
Right.
And I had to submit myself to that. And that meant I had to follow him while I was in jail, prison, all that. And
that's not easy.
It's not. But,
it's not going to be easy.
But how do you become established in what you believe if you don't walk through it? Even when it's hard, even when it doesn't make sense, even when you're having to face the consequences,
right.
How do you not get established in who you are? That's how. By walking through hard stuff, by facing it head on. Look, I messed up. I had to face that. You've messed up. You've had to face it. We've all had to face it and own it and say, you know what? I'm rising above this.
Yeah.
And it's powerful how God uses that, because I believe I was past addiction, even if I never went back to prison. I really believe that. But that journey has enabled me to connect with more people, be more sympathetic to people, and I believe it's made me a better leader today, a better husband today. And that sounds so crazy because it was a dark, dark time in my life, and even when I got out, it was I look back and it's still dark, but it was so powerful what God did in my life through it. So,
and it's profitable. Your whole past was profitable today because now you can use it to help someone else.
That's right.
So go ahead.
Well, teen challenge.
Yeah.
Right. So how would you, just kind of in that, looking at our things and growing through our things, how would you define Teen Challenge's approach to treating addiction?
Yep. So our approach is life change. We believe that you have to change your life. There's got to be a total life transformation. And so our approach is we're more faith-based. We're more teaching men who they are in Christ and what God's created them to be, so they can fulfill that purpose inside of them. And to do that, we offer a broad approach. We've got so much different curriculum. I mean, we just came out with something called Breaking Free from Addiction, Successful Christian Living, Successful Living in Society. There's a whole bunch of books and curriculum that we teach that hopefully gets to the heart of why you're doing what you're doing, and then how can we help you deal with the emotions, the attitudes, the behaviors, the things that you've been struggling with your whole life, and then hopefully they can work on those things while they're in the program, and we can direct their life on what's positive and how to live successful in society, how to be a husband, because we're a men's program. So our mission is restoring broken families one man at a time, putting fathers back in the home. And so that's some of the things that we do, just from a broad perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, because a lot of times it's like, oh, I'm a new creation in Christ. I'm like, you are, but there's some belief systems and some behavior patterns and some things that maybe we need to look at. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your vision for Mercy House? What do you have that's coming up? What's your goal? Do you have a goal in mind of what you want to see happen at Mercy House, or what does that look like for you?
You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Because I've got a big vision for recovery in this area and maybe even beyond this area. Who knows? We've been on a mission over the last, I've been the executive director now almost 4 years, and I inherited a healthy program. David Dillmore was our old executive director, wonderful man of God, still a mentor of mine. And he built Mercy House, not he, but he labored and helped grow the ministry to what it is. So I inherited something that was healthy. A lot of people like Daniel Wabadi at Care Center, he started something from the ground up. I don't know if you've ever had him here, but
I have. Yeah.
He started something from the ground up.
He was one of our first.
Yeah, and is doing an amazing job.
How do you say his last name?
Awabadi, I think. Awabadi?
We're sorry if you're listening.
Daniel,
to
if you're
this.
listening, forgive us, please.
We butchered that.
Yeah, his brother is a good friend of mine, and so I reached out to him. And Cliff I've bought 5 cars from him over at CIO Autoplex. So if you need a car, go check out Cliff.
Commercial break.
And no, word from a sponsor.
Yeah.
But Daniel was gracious enough to come in and talk about what he's doing over there. He's killing it over there. Yeah. So go on.
So we just think I think recovery in general is life change, and we believe our ministry just. I inherited 4 years ago. We started looking at our campus and what can we do to be better to help people. And so we've been remodeling, and we added the chapel and new kitchen and classroom, and we added the third phase program. So the third phase is the last 5 months while they're in our program, they move to a separate location and they work on getting fines paid, license, all those things that they don't have or, that they need. And they're also working a job. We get to see where they're at, how they actually live in this life that they live, because anybody can be in a program and be successful. How do you actually live it? That's really what's on my heart, is like not when they first get there, but what does their life look like in 2 or 3 years? So we've been on this journey with our program of like really, I believe, getting some foundational things in place. And I think we're there where our program's pretty healthy. There's always room to improve and room to grow. But what I see is the vision to free all people, no matter what walk of life they're in or where they're at in their journey. Some people are not ready for a 14-month, year-long, 9-month program. They're either at a beginning stage or they're at a stage where they just want to go somewhere for 30, 60, 90 days. So we're on this mission to figure out how we can help people at that stage of their journey. So what I see is for our program is we're going to embark on having a short-term program. It's going to be called something else. I don't want to give all the details out. Sure. But we believe there's a way to have a short-term program, 30, 60, whatever, 90 days, that also bridges into the long-term program. Because some people go in, they don't know what to do when they finish a short-term program. I'm sure you see it a lot. And so we have a wonderful long-term program. And so we're actually looking at some property somewhere. I don't want to say where exactly yet, but and it's a beautiful campus. It's like 64 acres, and we're looking at possibly moving our men's program there. It's more central in the area. And then our campus in Georgetown, which is where Mercy House is, we're thinking about making that into a women's center and then a women with children center.
Wow.
Because there's not many places.
There's only one place in Vicksburg, right?
Yeah, Beautiful Deliverance.
Yeah.
With the people that have 2-3 kids or a woman that's pregnant, there's shelters, and I know Charlotte Winger does a good job at the Wingard home, and a lot of places that help. But really, discipleship and life change is important in that stage of the life. So that's a couple of things happening. We want to introduce a short-term model that flows into long-term recovery. We want to introduce community. We want to introduce family development. So the place we're looking at has got apartment units on it, like 48 apartment units. And people coming out of addiction, they need to learn how to live.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you get a husband, and then the wife has been living in hell because he's put her through hell, and she's not getting any of the things that the guy's getting. And so then they come back together, and she's wounded, she's hurt. How does she handle,
a little resentful maybe?
Yeah, you got all this.
Yeah, maybe.
Because we tend to focus, this is something that God showed me, we focus on the man while he's in the program, and that's good. But the family doesn't get anything.
It's a family disease, too.
It is.
We want to introduce a family ministry, family recovery. It's going to be called Family Development. And we want to be able to have host apartments where we put a family in for a year.
Yeah.
2 years, we probably max it out at a year just because we want them to get out on their own. But where we disciple them, we put a host couple over them, and we help them walk through life, their finances, their emotions. And so what we see for our program over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years and beyond is short-term mixing in with long-term, women's center, women and family center. We eventually want to have an adolescent center for kids 16 and under that don't have, there's really no places in the state for that. And so just a broader vision of in this area, in the whole state, of just reaching all people that struggle with addiction, with life change, and with community, and with, just giving them the tools to succeed outside of the program.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because that's the key.
Right.
Yeah.
It's and you have to want it. We could do, I'm going bald, losing my head, trying to figure out ways to help people.
Oh, don't even start talking about that, my man.
You're already there. But you've got to want it, and anybody listening today, you've got to want to change your life, and you don't have to know how, but you've got to want to. So that's what I say. Our broader vision is to do more in the area, and we're embarking on that journey as of now, and there'll be some exciting things happening in the future, over the next few months that I believe is going to really help the community and all of us working together. So.
Yeah. The family focus, I could not love that more. There's nothing more disheartening as a therapist than to do, 30, 60 days with somebody and they have made such life change. They have worked so hard, and then send them back into an environment with people who have just been in the same place for that 30, 60 days. And to it's almost like throwing an infant out on the interstate and like, do well. I hope that that you can dodge cars really well. But it's a family disease. It is, and everybody has a role to play. That's not saying we're blaming other people, but everybody has a role to play in an addict being an addict for however long they were an addict. And so being able to bring in the family unit and okay, what else needs to change besides the person who's struggling with the addiction? That is good stuff. That is very powerful.
Absolutely.
We're going to have a dedicated family ministry, a person on staff that's all they do. And they may have volunteers up underneath them, but they're focused on the family. Mm-hmm. They're focused on the wife and or if it's a woman in the program, the husband, the family. And we're gonna figure out how to really make a difference in that area because it's a need.
Yeah. Excuse me. Let me ask you this real quick. So for me in early sobriety, I'm not 100% certain I would have been able to do it without therapy. In fact, I really don't know if I would have been able to do that. I've tried it before, stayed sober for a little while, but I wasn't willing or ready to talk about the things that I was running from in my life, and until this time, getting sober almost 3 years ago. And it was at that moment that I was ready to be open and honest completely 100% with someone else other than myself. And so I don't think that I don't know that I would be sober right now had I not had access to therapy. So my question is this: do you guys offer therapy if someone is in definite need of some therapeutic services? What do you guys have anything that you offer? Do you have someone that comes in and talks to people? What does that look like as far as counseling and therapy is concerned for those in your program?
Yep. So as of right now, we don't have what we need for that. We do have a couple staff that are Christian counselors, and they counsel. You know, one of them's an older man, and he counsels guys. You know, but a dedicated therapist or somebody they can walk through their stuff with, we don't have. Now, we have individual advisors, and we have some volunteers, some women that come down and spend time with the guys, and a couple of pastors that come down and have one-on-one time with the guys, and a lot of guys open up through that. So we have a form of it,
Sure,
but it's not as dedicated as I would like for it to be. That's what we're trying to embark on, some new things and figuring out how to do the same thing, but incorporate new methods in with what we're doing to better give people at whatever stage they're on and what they specifically need as an individual for their help and their recovery and their life change. So we're on that journey about that.
Yeah.
I have to jump in here. That was part of what I wanted, like where I wanted to go in some of the thought processes that I've had thinking for this episode today, because I know, like, I went through Teen Challenge and I've been through a whole bunch of trauma, and now I'm a therapist, and so like all of those things together. One of the things I felt like I didn't get enough of at Teen Challenge, but then you're kind of in a double-edged sword here, because like, how do we pay for that? Or like, how do we facilitate that and like feed people and keep the lights on? So I don't really know what the solution is, but I had questions of like, have you ever thought to, maybe partner with some people in the community to see like counseling organizations, if they might be willing to do some free counseling? Because when I went to school to be a therapist, in the back of my head was, one day I'm going to be stable enough to go give that free counseling to faith-based programs, because I know that I could have really benefited from that, because the effect of trauma on the brain is real.
It's real,
right?
Yeah.
And so that was the one thing when I think about my experience in Teen Challenge that I didn't get, that I feel like would have really helped me.
And I agree with you. I think we're on that journey of becoming better as a program, and really looking at the individual. So, and that approach, instead of, Adult and Teen Challenge has been old school in some of their thinking. And I don't think that way. I want to do whatever we can do to help people. And obviously we're faith-based and we want to stay faith-based.
Sure.
But there is other methods. And, but so we're on that journey. We're figuring it out. We're trying to figure out how to partner with people to have them come in and counsel. And our location in Georgetown, it's always been kind of a hurdle because it's so far. So potentially moving where we may move to, may give us more opportunity for more volunteers to come in, more organizations, more schools. I know there's a couple of seminary colleges that people are going to school for Christian counseling, and so anyway, we're definitely looking at how we can do that. So maybe you got some help, some advice for us.
I'm all for it. I'm over here. I can speak for myself for sure, but any way that I could, link up with the therapist that I know in the area and just see like what kind of awareness could we raise, what kind of initiative could we put together, I'd be all for it, because I'm all like, listen, therapy changed my whole life.
Therapy, and then the backside of that is the community aspect. In a celebrate recovery, what do they call them? Your not peer support, sponsors. All that is the same terminology: accountability, sponsor, working out your issues. But we're on that journey. I think it's good to have that.
So it sounds like you are not content with just the status quo and sitting where you're at. It sounds like you're actively pursuing ways every single day to better the program and better yourself and to better those that are underneath you.
I love that.
It's
well, that's programs. I'm not saying our program's going to die if we don't do this, but a lot of programs and individuals and leaders, their visions die because they don't think outside the box. They don't bring in other people, other organizations that are doing things, getting advice and learning how to think differently. And always, I think John Maxwell says, if a leader is never satisfied, you should always be looking for more in business. If you become satisfied, and especially in the business world, a new idea comes, sweeps your company off the feet.
You're dead.
And you're dead. So innovation's important. it's doing things in the right time. And something else that we're doing, I mentioned this, we're starting, I hope I'm not saying this too soon, but I'll just say it. We're starting a Freedom Challenge program in the Mississippi Department of Corrections.
Oh, wow.
A program like Teen Challenge. Initially, I'm not sure how it's all going to work yet. Our goal with it is to have an actual zone, an actual pod in the prison that we can create a program 9 months long with maybe 2 years, a year after of leadership for those in prison, that because drugs are rampant in the prison system, and guys are strung out in there, and then they get out and they're strung out because they were strung out in there. So then they're set up for even worse success. So, and we're hoping that the Freedom Challenge is going to be a bridge to our program when they get out. So maybe if they completed that program and they did good, got out, they wouldn't have to get out and come do a whole another program. We would figure out a way to bridge them in to do something shorter, like moving to our third phase house where they could get a job and work, but still have accountability. And so, we're excited about that. We're, hopefully any day now that kicks off.
That would be awesome.
That is so exciting.
Yeah. That would be super, super awesome. One thing that, relapse for me was part of my story. It doesn't have to be part of your story. For me, it was part of my story. So at Mercy House, when someone falls off the rails and they go back out or they take a drink, or what are the steps that you guys have in place? How do you handle that? How do you deal with the actual relapse and the relapse of the individual and their families? What does that look like when someone stumbles and falls?
That's a good question.
It is. Well, it's challenging. It really depends on the situation. Some people go out, they have one beer or they do one substance and they call immediately and they're like, hey man, I messed up, help me be free. In that situation, it looks a lot different. There's a lot of, depending on who it is, and how we do it is different for each individual person. But essentially, it's all into what emotions were bringing you to the point where you felt like you needed a substance to deal with the problem or the emotions you were facing. Were you feeling low on the inside? What was causing you to feel that way? 1, 2, where was your accountability at? Who are you talking to about what's going on in your life? And so from there, we'll figure out some sort of programming, some sort of curriculum, some sort of, most all of them go through the Christian counselor we have and talk with him. And from there, we just figure out, based on their situation, how to help them through that,
Yeah, most of us know drugs and alcohol are but a symptom of something else that's going on.
Right.
So it sounds like you guys are well situated to and know this and know that when someone falls off the wagons, there's a reason that happened, and you guys are pretty effective at identifying, running to that. Let's get to the root of this. Yeah. Let's figure out what happened instead of shaming you because
that's what I was fixing to say.
We don't do that. No.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've gotten a lot better, and we're continuing to get better at not because somebody makes a mistake or relapse, we don't condemn them or push them off to the side or make it so burdensome on them that they can't get past it.
Yeah.
I think it
like
all
wearing the sign in rehab. I had relapse.
I think it all depends on the person. Somebody willing and wanting to change, and when they mess up, they're going to be humble. They're going to ask for help. Those are the easy people to help, right? Mm-hmm. The people that are hard to help are those that deny, lie. I can't tell you how many people I pulled in my office like, hey, I heard this happen. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Brother Matt, I would never.
I understand that.
Please.
I was that guy.
I was like, look, we're going to give you a drug test. Are you going to fail it, pass it? If you get honest with me now, we can work through this. Let's talk about it. No. Mm-hmm. And come back, drug test hot. And it's a challenge, so.
The plastic cup melts.
Yeah. But that's behaviors. People have lived their whole life with these behaviors of, I'm not going to ever admit, die with the lie, I'm not going to be a snitch. These are all behaviors that have just been learned that people don't even realize they've learned. And you've got to relearn all that.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
It's a journey.
Well,
it's not going to happen in 3 months, 2 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. It takes time. And so many people in recovery, they quit at the first sign of a hurdle or a mistake. Mm-hmm. They quit. And it's like, if you would just fight through that and know that all of us are on a journey where none of us are perfect. Right? But you have to take steps, and you have to surround yourself with accountability. You have to surround yourself with community. And I think that's one of the areas our program is trying to get better at. We're we're not where we need to be at, and as far as in community. And I know you'll never be. No program's perfect. You're never going to be exactly where you want to be, but there's some things we want to improve on. But all in all, I think we're doing a decent job.
Yeah, here's a question from left field. So, Defining Wellness caught onto this. Defining Wellness has 2 or 3 cold plunges.
4.
4.
Wait, no, 3.
3 cold plunges.
2 inside of a greenhouse, and then 1 that you can take outside.
Right, and I just completed my 315th day straight of cold plunging.
Wow, do you like it?
No, I hate it every single time. Every single time I hate it. But what it does is it teaches me to stick to that pain, push through that pain, push through that adversity for that 3 or 5 minutes that I'm in there. It sucks. I hate
horrible.
it every single time. It's miserable.
Do you use one too?
She came over and did it. Yeah,
I've done it a few times.
Yeah, she came over and did it. The whole Black Sheep team came over and, well, not all of them, but 3, 4
obviously the most dedicated ones.
But all joking aside, it has taught me so much as far as how to push through adversity in my life outside of the cold plunge. So my question is this: are you guys willing to think about that, discuss that, maybe follow in Defining Wellness? Is they're onto something, and my life is proof positive of that. This whole studio, everything that you see here, it didn't start until I started cold plunging. So take that for what it's worth. If you guys would be open to it, I think that it could really, really add a lot to those, especially to those in early sobriety. It's a phenomenal thing. So, definitely something to think about.
So we're on this journey too of like, our campus needed to be updated. I felt like God told me you need to get what you have in order, our campus and our program. And so that's one of the next steps, is that we want to really figure out our health, fitness, what they're eating. Because, you go through a program and
we got donations, and so we ate what we got. You know what I mean?
And we do too. We get a lot of donations, but we get some good stuff. And so we're trying to figure out how to create a salad bar and healthy food. And then exercise is, I love to exercise. It's like a part of my life. Like it's in my DNA. Like I have to. I know everybody's not like that, but for me, it's an escape. If I'm not exercising 3 or 4 times a week, I'm lost. Yeah.
Well, and I think cold plunge, exercise, food,
it's all the same.
It's all about, it's the holistic mind, body, and spirit. And a lot of times what people, they forget about the physical aspect of recovery. And you can't leave out the vessel, you know? Right. You can work on the mind, you can work on the connection with God, but you have this physical body that we have to do something with. And our neurotransmitters are real. Our brain chemistry is real. Our gut-mind connection is real. And all of that, God didn't say, hey, don't worry about that. It all has to be worked on together if you want this beautiful, well-rounded picture of what is a recovered life.
Right. And the impulses to use drugs are real. Chemicals fire off in the brain. It's the same urge. I don't know if you know that. It's the same urge as whenever you get hungry and you need food. It's the same urge to get high. Because it works on your central nervous system and the mind. And so people just think, oh, well, you should just get past that.
Yeah, why don't you just stop?
Use your willpower.
I can't believe you would leave your kids and you're in a crack house somewhere. And that is crazy that we live like that. But at the same time, the urges, the primordial urges, whatever they're called, are real. And those neurons far off in the brain. And you don't want to get so caught up in those things, the scientific part of it, that you lose track of the life change, that a decision and, Christ being able to fulfill those needs in your life, but they're still real.
Yeah.
Right.
And those emotions are real, and you have to teach people how to live through that.
It's all part of a very complicated puzzle.
Yeah. We were just talking about that. I think there's so many people that approach this recovery thing, and it's either got to be all AA, all church, all science. And I'm like, maybe we could have all of it.
Yeah, let's bring it all together.
Why do we have to be so dichotomous there in our thinking that it has to be one way or the other, when we could incorporate all of the pieces from all of these different, approaches to recovery that fit.
And this is what I believe. I believe if we can incorporate all the approaches, and I'm a believer in Christ and faith-based, I can lead somebody to Christ through that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Our program, even if somebody comes in and they just want to go 30 days or something, we can plant a seed in them in the chapel one night if they choose to come to service, that hopefully can transform their life forever. So we can all get together and do the same thing, but ultimately, I believe, will lead them to their purpose in life, which is Christ. So I believe it can all work together.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the things that I loved about what you said on one of the Black Sheep episodes was, there's, and Recovery Lab stance is any path that leads to recovery, we support that.
Right.
It doesn't have to be faith-based. It doesn't have to be AA. It could be SMART. It can be whatever path leads you to long-term sobriety and happiness and joy in your life. We support that. For me, AA was the solution for me because I was ready when AA was in the forefront of my mind. I tried faith-based. I tried Celebrate Recover. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to quit. So it didn't work for me. But Drew, my co-host, he wasn't ready when AA was right in front of him. And so AA did not work for him. Faith-based worked for him because he was at his end when he was in faith-based. So faith-based works for him. So, what I loved about what you said was I see you as what I want the world to be, a bridge of recovery. You go to church, but you also go to AA and you celebrate recovery. And that's what I love. And that's what we love at the Recovery Lab is if there is a path that leads you to long-term sobriety, man, we get behind you 100%. Absolutely. So,
well, you see that especially, and we may have to go, but
no, you're good.
You see that especially when you start seeing people overdose and die,
right?
And you see, you're just like whatever we can do, and that's why we want our program, and it's going there. It's happening. I don't know how we're going to get there, but I just see the vision of how our program can bridge across all different areas and community, family development, all of it, and short term mixing in with counseling, therapy, all that stuff. And still incorporating the faith-based long-term, which people need, life change, all what we teach currently, mixing it all together.
Right.
And I'm excited about it because I think it's going to really change the area.
Yeah. I'm so grateful to hear you say that. I just love that.
I love it. All right. So we're about 4 minutes away from our end here. But I'm going to go ahead and use Drew's famous 2 questions that he has at every completion of the Recovery Lab.
I'm so nervous.
I know. I'm like, what is this? I'm not.
Okay, so question number 1. What do you do poorly in your recovery?
I think what we do poorly in our recovery now is setting people up for success long-term, a community aftercare. We are not where I want to be in doing that. I don't know why. We're really trying. Our third phase, we started in May of 23, kicked it off. It's going well, and that's the first step. And the next step is going to be families development, family integration, and figuring all that part out. That's the next step. And so that's the areas we don't do as well in.
Okay. And final question. What do you do well in your recovery?
My personal recovery?
In your personal recovery.
Oh, that's a loaded question. One, I think, is humility.
Yeah.
I think, anybody going to do anything for a long time, you have to stay humble and you have to stay broken. And I just read a book about all that, and it was just talking about brokenness is not woe is me. Brokenness is I cannot do this alone.
Yeah, that's so
I
good.
have to have God in my life. I have to have accountability. I have to live the way God's called me to live. And anything that I walk through, it's all should lead me to brokenness. Whether I'm on top of the world and our ministries and conquering and we're building and developing and we're helping people, that pressure should lead me to the Lord, and it should lead me broken, right? Or if I'm lonely and I'm in a dark place, we all walk through these dark places. I mean, right. I don't have it figured out. I mean, my past creeps up from time to time. I have thoughts and memories, and it's all real. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, it doesn't go away. I don't care how long. Yeah. But in those moments, that leads me to brokenness, and brokenness is getting close for me in my relationship with the Lord. It's bringing me to a dependence on Him and recognizing my need for Him. So one thing I would say that God has really changed my life with is in humility. Anybody that is self-driven, I'm a self-driven person. I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. I'm a go-getter, I guess you could say. We tend to struggle with pride.
I don't know anything about that.
and what I've walked through, I believe God used all that to strip me of that and keep me humble. And so that's really something that's helped me a lot. Staying humble, staying broken, never forgetting where I came from.
Absolutely.
Because all we are is servants. You ask how I got to Mercy House, like, and what I do. I'm the executive director, whatever you want to call me, but I view it as just a servant to help people, whatever my role is, just to serve.
Absolutely.
You know, whether I'm creating programs that help people or creating structure or discipling somebody, it's all a servant. All of us, you know,
awesome.
just serving. So.
I love it. So if someone is in need of help right now, and wants to reach out to you or Mercy House, how can they get in touch with you guys?
So you can go on our website, mercyhouseatc.com. You're going to see a bunch of stuff you can walk through that answers your questions about how to get in. You can call our intake number. The number is 670-3718. So 601-670-3718. I hope I said that right. But you can go on our website. The number's on there. And we have beds available right now for somebody that needs it. We try to make it as easy as possible. We try to really love you through coming in, you know, and make it as easy as possible for you to get in.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming,
thank you so
especially
much.
on Super Bowl Sunday. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Oh, we have 72,662 people watching right now. Thank you all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching and listening, and we will see you next week. Drew will be back next week, and we'll have a new and exciting conversation for you. Thank you so much for listening to The Recovery Lab. Thank you.